So you want a place to store valuables, important documents, precious family heirlooms, or maybe a few bricks of cash. Well, if that's the case, you're in the right place, because in this video, I'm going to be sharing everything that you need to know about private vaults and safe deposit boxes in stable and secure jurisdictions for foreign non-residents. This is going to include a few examples, the opening process and requirements, as well as the types of facilities that we generally suggest our clients consider. Now, in case this is the first time we've met, my name is Chris. I'm the head of banking relationships at GlobalBanks. We help investors and entrepreneurs navigate cross-border banking and financial services. Not surprisingly, many of our wealthy clients are looking for unique alternatives to store physical valuables. The kind of valuables you can't put into a bank account, and you especially don't want to leave lying around the house if you're traveling for extended periods of time. And one of the best solutions available is what we commonly call a safe deposit box. But what we're really talking about, it's a category of secure storage facilities known as private vaults. Now, unlike bank accounts, which are offered by licensed financial institutions, private vaults, they can be offered by both banks and private companies, as well as a number of different facilities. And as we'll discuss in a second, it's some of these private companies, in particular the ones that have been around operating for many decades, that offer some of the more interesting options for foreign non-residents. But before we dive in, if you like these kinds of videos where we discuss alternative ways to protect your wealth and your assets, do me a favor. Give this video a like. That way we know that we should keep making more content like this for you in the future. All right, now before we dig too deep, I just want to point out that we do get a lot of questions about safe deposit boxes, private vault facilities, and similar storage options in a wide range of countries. And a big reason for this is that banks and financial institutions in many countries, they've started closing these accounts and forcing their customers to collect valuables and find alternative solutions instead. So that means there's demand from existing users as well as newcomers, which means it's becoming increasingly difficult to find private vaults and safety deposit boxes in your desired country, especially at a specific time when you actually need them. Plus, there's a surge in demand for certain physical assets, like physical metals including gold, silver, platinum, even palladium. And then there's just folks who generally distrust financial institutions and desire greater privacy, especially if they're from countries where privacy is rapidly deteriorating, which is most countries in the West at this point. Now, if you do live in a country where safety deposit boxes are still being offered by banks, you might find that there's a massive waiting list. And in most cases, banks and financial institutions, they're not adding more capacity. Actually, as I've already mentioned, capacity is being decreased, and in most places, that means that it's going to be very difficult to find a box available for you, especially at traditional financial institutions. So finding a safe deposit box that meets your needs in a jurisdiction that you feel comfortable with at the time that you need it can be a huge challenge. Now, I just want to clarify. We help clients navigate cross-border banking and financial services. And private vaults and safe deposit boxes, they don't exactly fall into that universe. But we do get a lot of questions about this topic, especially from our wealthiest clients who are looking for private banking and wealth management solutions. So I thought I'd address it here for anyone else that's interested in this topic. In fact, I'm going to be releasing a complete breakdown of private banking very soon. This is going to walk you through how the super rich leverage private banking to make even more money through creative financing, various lending solutions, and other wealth management products and services. So if you have any interest in private banking, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you get alerted when we publish that video. All right, so where can you find private vaults as a foreign non-resident? Well, as always, the answer is it depends. But you can find private vaults and safe deposit boxes in most major financial centers, including those in Europe, Asia, and the Americas. Interestingly, the companies operating these private vault facilities, they generally have limited residency requirements and require very limited account opening documents. And the reason for this is that when you obtain a safe deposit box at a private vault facility, you are not entering a financial arrangement. You're entering a custodial arrangement. Of course, if you elect to get a safe deposit box with a financial institution like a bank, you will be asked to first open a bank account and provide all of the standard documentation to meet KYC, AML, and BSA requirements. But if you choose to open with a private vault company instead, like those that you can find in Austria, Singapore, Panama, and many other countries, then you should be able to move forward relatively quickly with limited documents, if they have any boxes available. And that's really the problem that most people are going to face. Because private vaults and the safe deposit boxes they offer, they tend to be in very high demand, especially in major financial centers with large expat populations. And if you're considering one of the long-standing private vault companies with a strong reputation, it's unlikely that they'll have space for you, though there's always a small chance. Now, let's say you do find a private vault company. Like I said, there are popular options in a number of different countries. You call them up and they have a box available that meets your specifications. What now? How do you actually go about opening an account with one of these companies? Well, in most cases, you are going to need to provide two things. First, your passport, and second, payment for the first year of storage. Now, depending on where you go, you might be asked for a second form of identification, like a driver's license, and certain private vaults, they're going to require the first year's payment to be made in cash. Now, as I've said in past videos, the vast majority of our clients, around 95%, they open financial accounts remotely. But when it comes to acquiring a safe deposit box at a private vault facility, you almost always need to show up in person. And that shouldn't be too surprising, since what we're talking about is a way to store your physical goods. During the visit, you will need to sign a contract, pay the balance, insert your secret code, and receive your keys for the box. But that's basically it. And depending on where you open, subsequent annual payments, they can usually be made by wire, or you can show up in person and pay in cash if you prefer. Now, one interesting point, if you do forget to pay in the future, you'll be happy to know that nothing happens to your box, at least in most cases. Instead, that box, it just stays locked, and you're still going to be the owner. Though if you want access to your box again, you will need to pay the outstanding balance. Oh, and during the period of non-payment, your box, it's not going to be insured. Which brings me to an important point, and that's insurance. Like I said, private vault facilities, they're not financial institutions. But most private vault facilities, they do offer insurance on boxes, including the ability to add extra insurance if you want. In my experience, the insurance premiums, they're very reasonable. For example, less than $1,000, it can usually get you upwards of $1 million in coverage. This is going to vary by the jurisdiction and if there's any restrictions on the amount of coverage that they can offer. But that's very interesting when you compare it to a financial institution where these types of safe deposit boxes are not typically insured. Definitely not by the government, and in most cases, you're going to find that banks, they don't even offer insurance on the boxes to begin with. Now, in terms of pricing, most standard boxes, they're going to run between $500 and $1,000 per year, though certain facilities, they can offer boxes upwards of $5,000 for oversized storage. Though I should add, if you're looking for specialized facilities to store different assets like precious metals, you're usually going to be paying based on weight, either a percentage of value or a fixed rate per ounce, depending on the facility that you go with and even the specific metal that you're holding. Now, like I said, you are going to have to show up in person to obtain a safe deposit box at most private vaults. But before you get on a plane, it's extremely important that you call ahead. Again, the reason for this is that most facilities, they have very limited, if any, available supply of safe deposit boxes. So save yourself some money and disappointment and make sure you call your preferred facility before booking flights. Now, one final point here, talking about preferred facilities, a few important things to think through when choosing the place to establish a relationship. It's going to include the company's track record. How long have they been operating? Do they have a history of excellent service and delivering on promises? Or do they have a history of lawsuits, complaints, and mismanagement? Again, we're talking about private companies here, not necessarily financial institutions, which typically don't have any regulatory oversight, though this does depend on the jurisdiction as well. And like I said at the start of this video, these types of facilities, they're typically used by our wealthiest clients, the kind of people that typically come to us for private banking and wealth management services. And if that sounds like you, you'll probably get a lot of value out of a recent video that I just did on Swiss private banking secrets. It's all about private banking and how to leverage lesser known advantages and account opening tactics to squeeze even more money out of your private banking relationships. If that sounds interesting, give that a click and I'll give you all the details over there right now.